You can tell a lot of my friends are air signs and fire signs, eh? Sorry, I'm trying to get my day ready. Um, Jumping on every word I say. So yes, I did say that I had my intuition removed, and I did have my intuition removed, but I'm going to explain it to you. You need to understand I'm what's called a fringe theorist. So I have a very outside of the box thinking. I'm uh, I'm a new concepts and new ideas scientist. I'm an evolutionary theorist. I'm a theoretical physicist. And everything that I think is very outside the box thinking that mainstream thinkers or mainstream minds don't grasp or can't understand. So I'm going to explain it as best I can like this. I use the word intuition a lot because it's easier than explaining to people what I just said. I'm an evolutionary theorist, I'm a theoretical physicist who thinks outside the box. So I should have used the word instinct when I said about I trust my instinct, I trust my intuition to follow the music. What I should have said was I trust my instinct, and that is because the first musical instrument ever invented was a human voice, and it dates back to the reason why we are drawn to music. The reason why even babies will wriggle their bums and stuff when they hear music is because it is just in us to respond to the sound of music, because it goes back to when we are in the womb and it's emulating the rhythm of the heartbeat, the rhythm of the mother walking. It's very soothing for us. It is instinctual for us to be drawn to music. Um, I teach a lot of my mums. I help a lot of young mums online as part of my training. You know, back in the day when I was training for Plunkett to do my early childhood development certificate, and that and it's part of me being WIC. It's my job to look after babies and pregnant mums and young mums, and it's part of the feminine principle. But what I teach a lot of my mums is that when they can't stop their babies from crying, is I get them to swaddle their babies with a blanket, and then hold the baby's head to their heart, and then put their hand on the baby's back and emulate the beat of their heart on the baby's back, because it takes the baby back to the comfort of the womb and it immediately soothes them. Now, other cases of instinctual reaction is like there are only two fears that we are born with: the fear of noises and the fear of falling, which dates back to when we were primates in the tree, and we had to, one of our biggest fears was when we fell asleep in the trees, we'd fall out of them. So it's often one of the reasons why when babies are born, the doctors, when they pull the baby out, will dip the baby so that the baby, is jolted into breathing or crying, because it takes them back to that instinctual fear of falling out of trees when we were primates. The fear of loud noises comes from the fact that we were sempi prey. Sempi means lowest in the food chain, and we had to be aware of predators, apex or alpha predators coming after us to eat us, and so they'd come crashing through the jungle and forests and break up out of the water and things like that. In order to get us, we had to be aware of it. So that's why we have a fear of loud noises. It's also one of the reasons why we have pareidolia, which is often in the paranormal world. People will see faces inside patterns and think that they are messages or images of the dead, but it's not. It's actually pareidolia, which is where it takes us back to when we were prey, where we had to look for facial recognition, like things hiding in amongst the jungle and in amongst, the landscapes and that were possibly looking at us as dinner. So our minds and our brains immediately developed this ability to see faces inside patterns so that we could see as prey potential predators hiding under the guise of camouflage or at night. And that's all instinctual. That's just in us. Other versions of instincts are things like involuntary acts. They are things that our body does involuntarily in order to maintain our function and survival, like blinking, the need to urinate, hunger pains. They're all instinctual. They're all things that are in us regardless of whether you think about doing them or not. Intuition is, as I said, instinct is biological. Intuition is psychological. Intuition is developed over the course of your lifetime. It is tuned in as you grow and develop psychologically, and depending on the balance of your psychological mind will depend on how strong your intuition is. A lot of people will ignore their intuition and end up getting themselves in dangerous situations, or killed and things like that, because they don't have an imbalance. They have an imbalanced psychological mind, which often creates paranormal activity as well and leads you into danger. Your psychological mind is absolutely necessary because it is where logic, doubt and reason sit. So the voice in your head that tells you not to do something, if you don't listen to it and then you do it anyway and it gets you into trouble, that's because you didn't listen to the good part of your psychological mind. Now, I say that your psychological mind is made up of your shadow side and or your subconscious mind and your conscious mind, or your light side and your dark side. But not everything that is negative lives in the shadows. You also have things that you hide that you don't want people to know about that are good aspects of yourself. Like, for example, my ex-husband that I've known for over 20 years only just found out that I can ride horses. Nobody knows I like horses and I can ride horses. I'm quite adequate at riding horses. My big brother, who was training to be a jockey when he was younger, used to bring the horses home, and he actually taught me to ride horses, and I love to ride horses. And I would love to have a horse one day and call it Nicodemus and dress it up like an at Halloween and stuff like that. But, a lot of people also don't know that I used to be able to read sheet music and play guitar. I just had a very embarrassing experience with members of my family when I was a teenager, that because I'm quite a shy person, believe it or not, when I'm out in public I'm a lot quieter around people I don't know than around people that I do, which is one of the reasons why this channel's been great, because it's helped me kind of come out of my shell a little. I'm still shy in public. I'm more comfortable with being out in public. I'm socially awkward. I don't necessarily know how to talk to people because I was always afraid of how I was coming across, but now I kind of just don't care. I was embarrassed once when I was a teenager and I stopped playing the guitar and I lost my ability to read sheet music because of it, and it's one of the biggest regrets in my life, but I am utterly determined to learn how to play the guitar again. And I'd love to play the drums too. My dad was a drummer in a band and I always thought it was so cool, him being a drummer. I grew up with him playing the knives and fork. When we'd sit at the dinner table waiting for dinner, he would bang his knife and fork on like all the like the salt and pepper and mayonnaise and things like that, and it just was the coolest thing. And I always wanted to learn to play the drums. And when we had to sign up for music class at school, I wanted to play the drums, but all the positions were taken, so I had to learn guitar and keyboard. But I can also play the keyboard as well. I just lost it when I was embarrassed at a party when I was a teenager. So there are hidden aspects of myself that a lot of people don't know about me that have lived in the shadows. So there are good shadows and there's negative ones. And that lives in the subconscious mind, or the psychological part of your mind. Then you have your conscious side, or your higher self, where your intuition lives, which is what I call your psychic logical mind. And they're two very distinctly different things. So it's always just been easier for me to say intuition rather than instinct, because then you have to explain what I've just had to explain, and then by that point a lot of people's eyes glaze over because you're talking about evolutionary theories and evolution, the biological development of our evolution over the course of time and stuff, and people's eyes glaze over. So that's what I meant, but I thought I'd explain it, and now you've learned something interesting. So, yeah, there you go. Mwah.